Homeschooling can be challenging when you're in good health, but it can be even more challenging when you're dealing with chronic illness and pain. Let's talk about that subject today. Welcome to the Simply Charlotte Mason podcast. I'm Sonya Schaefer. Chronic illness and pain is not foreign to a Charlotte Mason approach. Charlotte herself had chronic heart issues her whole life. And during her later years, when she was teaching her students at her teacher training college, she would often have to teach them from a wheelchair or from her couch. So it's nothing new. And that's one reason that it's dear to my heart. But another reason is because of our guest today. Joining me today is my daughter, Ruth. Ruth, thanks for joining us.
Of course. And I brought my own guest along today, too.
Yes, it is. Bring your daughter to podcast day. Yes. Well, I appreciate you being willing to share. This is a personal subject, I know, and everybody's experience is different. I kind of got a taste of that when I was going through cancer, and everybody wants to give you advice, but their particular brand of what they're going through might be different from yours, probably is different from yours. But I appreciate your being willing to share from your experience.
Of course.
Let's talk a little bit about your history with chronic illness so people know where you're coming from.
Sure. Yeah, my intention today is not to get into all the details because, as you said, it varies so much from person to person. I can say chronic illness has defined the majority of my life, starting with issues when I was a child and ongoing. And there have been some ups and downs throughout that time, but definitely my whole life has been marked by the challenges that come with chronic illness. And I was thinking about what I wanted to share and found myself wishing most of all what I could do would be to hear from others who are struggling with this and to hear their story because they don't need me to say how hard life can be because they're living it. They know it's hard. And often it can have sort of an invisible component to it. You don't look sick. So what I wish most of all is that I could just be a witness to their stories and hear the way it's impacted their life and their homeschooling journey. But since we can't do that on the podcast very well, one thing I do often liken living with chronic illness to is energy poverty. So in the same way that living with a restricted income would affect every part of your life, and your stress level and your need to be strategic and your limitations, everything like that.
Yes.
When you have a very limited capacity, your energy is limited, your time may be limited, depending on how much care you need for yourself.
And even mental clarity.
Yeah, exactly.
Limited. Yeah.
All of that's limited, and so that just affects everything in the same way that living on a low income can affect
financial poverty and energy
right, and then
poverty.
Energy poverty.
That's a great comparison. And it's not the same thing, but I had a taste of that when I was going through radiation because it just saps the energy from you, but it's invisible.
Right.
That people can't tell, but in the back of your mind, whatever's left of it.
Yes.
and just your energy just goes like that. It's gone.
And you have to gauge for yourself all the time. Oh, what can I do? Where do I push? Where do I rest?
Yeah.
I think everyone can relate to going through difficult seasons, whether it's through sickness or other hardships, and especially when it comes to homeschooling, where it's just hard to get school done because things are not normal. But the one unique thing about chronic illness is that by its definition, chronic, it's not going away. So it's not this sense of, I'll pull back for this season. We'll take things easy. I'll feel better next month. We'll get back on track. There isn't that. It's always this. And so living with chronic illness is just figuring out how do you carve a life out of this very constant set of limitations.
Because I often tell people and think about adjust your schedule for this season of life. And I use that term all the time. But with chronic illness, this season is ongoing.
Right.
There is no end to it.
There are seasons within that. There are times that are even worse, and then times that may be better. But there is a constancy to it.
Yeah. So let me ask this. How do you separate this is physically what my limitations are, but it does not define who I am as a person?
That is an interesting question, and I think it's one that gets theological really quick. I would say I don't separate those things because as someone who belongs to Christ, the Heidelberg Catechism says, our only hope in life and death is that we belong to Christ, body and soul. And so everything that I'm feeling and experiencing in my body is part of God's good and loving purpose. And as someone in Christ, they're not separate. It's all the same. It's shaping who I am.
Making us, conforming us to the image of his dear son. Yeah, all of these things happening. So let's get into some ideas that have helped you, some practices that have helped you, or that you think will help you as you go on.
Sure.
You've been homeschooling for 5 years now. Well, if you count from birth, it'd be more than that.
Right,
but
right.
Formal
Grade
lessons.
School.
Yeah.
I think this is our 4th year.
And you have 5 on the way, number 5 on the way.
Right.
I'm sure you have come up with some of these strategies that have been helpful in your situation. Would you share some of those with us?
Yeah, of course. I would say, the number one help is going year round, because it's much easier for me with my limited capacity to just try to do a little bit all the time as a lifestyle rather than, okay, push really hard, work hard for months and then nothing for, have a huge break. I can't function that way. So the ability to school year round helps us scale things smaller amounts per day.
Yeah.
And of course we do take breaks, but I can customize those based on what's going on and just what's best for our family.
That gives you much more flexibility.
Exactly. Flexibility is key. Those are 2 big things. One is to be strategic and have a really good plan in place, like a realistic plan, but already thinking through, what do I want to do, ideally? But then being flexible. So each day I look at my plan and say, can we actually cover all of this? What's the most important things to cover? Prioritize. Can we reshuffle a little bit if we need to? So tweaking, but I'm not approaching a blank slate every day going, oh, what should we do for school today? What can we do? I've got the plan, so I don't have to spend the mental energy deciding all of that. But then I do decide often on a day-to-day basis. Is this realistic?
Based on the level of your energy at that particular day.
Right. Some of it's my energy and some of it's the reality of having lots of young children because, as we've talked about on a different episode, you can't always predict the way a day is going to go. So those 2 factors definitely keep our days flexible. I think another very helpful strategy is to take a good look at your limitations, which, as we talked about a little bit, are going to be so unique from person to person. Don't be afraid to get so creative with accommodations.
What do you mean by accommodations?
For example, there was a period of many years where reading aloud was almost impossible for me. I would run out of breath. I could make it through like one picture book, but reading a chapter book every day just wasn't an option. And so at that point, I would want to be looking for, well, maybe this is what I want to do for our history spine, but it's got to be something that has an audio version that we can listen to. Or if there isn't, maybe I can find someone willing to record, them reading it out loud for our family to listen to, something like that. For some years, the mornings were impossible for me. That I'd be at my worst, and it would take many hours just to sort of be able to function. And so we didn't do morning school. I'd hit my stride in the early afternoon, and that's when we would get school done, get chores done, get everything done, be able to go play outside. So our days looked kind of backwards compared to a lot of other families.
But it worked for you.
Right.
And that was part of being flexible as well, designing your day and your activities in a way that's going to work
Right.
for you, so you can get them done.
Exactly.
It's more important to do them than what time of day you do them.
Exactly. And so don't be afraid to not match most other families you know. That could be even doing some subjects at the very end of the day, like when Dad's home and he can help, or seeing if he could take just one topic and fit that in somehow. Every family is going to be unique. So those are some things with schooling that you can figure out. Of course, like if you're on bed rest, you learn how to school with the kids on the bed.
Yeah. I remember Karen Andriola writing about this, and she said, because she's dealing with the same thing, and she said, make sure you have your resources at arm's length.
Yes.
So store them right by the
where
bed,
you can reach
so
them.
you've got them. Yeah.
Yes. I think it's also helpful, though, to look outside of school specifically and think, are there areas in my daily life where I can get some help or make it easier on myself so that I have the energy I need to pour into school?
Yes.
So whether that's if someone is able to come occasionally to help with household tasks or help take care of the little ones while you're schooling the older ones. I know that's not always an option, but sometimes you can find. We had a few years where we had a teenager come over a few hours a week to help me get the house, like knock out all the chores and help me with like bigger projects that I just didn't have the capacity for. And that was a lifesaver for us.
Yeah. I can see the same thing, even ordering your groceries.
That was one of the ones on my list of ideas. Yeah, doing grocery delivery or grocery pickup, or
because that will, even grocery pickup is going to conserve the energy that it takes to walk up and down the aisles.
Exactly.
Especially if you've got all the kids in tow.
Yes.
That takes a lot of energy.
Being able to just drive there and back, and maybe you can listen to your music study in the car while you go.
Yeah, exactly. I remember once when you guys were very small, it was getting more and more difficult for me to haul you all to the grocery store. Mm-hmm. I mean, you were pretty well behaved. All y'all were.
I like to think so.
Yes. But it still is a big thing. It takes a lot of energy. And so I thought, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to put them all to bed, and then I'm going to go get my groceries at night by myself.
What a treat.
Silence, freedom. This is going to be great. I did that one time.
Were you exhausted?
Yeah, didn't work. It's too late for my body clock was just winding down.
You were done at the end of the day.
But grocery delivery, grocery pickup, those would be great. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I definitely encourage looking at your specific situation and saying what areas are the most challenging for me, what things are hard to do because of my limitations, and then brainstorming. How can we accommodate these things, support these things, so that I can accomplish what needs to be done?
It seems like emotionally, when you're dealing with the pain and the chronic low energy and all that comes with it, it's easy for, at least my mind, to slip into a we can't do anything about this mentality. This is just the way it is. I can't change it.
Mm-hmm.
And rather than, as you say, brainstorming, what could we possibly do? And asking people around you, because sometimes, you had someone from church come in and help with you, with your
Right.
kids.
But I had to ask.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And sometimes you have not because you ask not.
Mm-hmm.
So even being willing to approach people and specifically ask, don't wait for someone to say, hey, how can I help you?
Right.
But actually going and saying, I have this particular need. I don't know if you can help me or if you know someone else who might be able to help me,
Mm-hmm.
but would you pray with me about that, and let's see if we can figure out a solution. That's what brothers and sisters in Christ are supposed to be for.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, and emotionally, there for sure have been times where I feel so guilty or ashamed or just grief about some of these limitations, because I want to be able to do these things. I want to be more and do more for my family. And times when I've been unable to, I've gotten, it's been hard. And Jordan has always been quick to encourage me and remind me when I'm beating myself up, saying other moms can do this.
Why
And
can't I?
right, other moms can do this, and you say, you're not other moms. This is our family. We have a unique family, and God's working it all for His plan, and so it's okay. It all works out. You don't have to be what all the other moms are.
That makes total sense. The word grief does apply because you're dealing with a sense of loss. And in a related way, I can relate to what you're feeling, because when you girls were young, we were involved in so many things. And then when we diagnosed my youngest with autism, she needed to stay home for a while, just because it was too overwhelming for her. And so we backed off of all these activities. And I was feeling that sense of loss, that sense of I'm ruining all the rest of my kids because of these limitations
Right,
that I did not ask for.
right. And
And
that's a big component, I
it
think, with
is.
chronic illness and being a mom, is because you want your kids to have the best.
Yes. So for me, I had to come to the point of realizing, as you were saying, this is part of God's plan for our family. And He has a purpose in these limitations, that it's going to shape the character
Right,
of each child here and of me,
right.
all of us. It's part of conforming us to the likeness of His Son in the unique way for our family.
Yeah.
So yeah, I understand. It really comes down to a matter of faith, that God is working even in these hard circumstances. And there's a wonderful quote in a book called In Memoriam. It was published after Charlotte's funeral, and it was letters and comments and all kinds of things that were made in her memory. And in there, Elsie Kitching, who was like her right-hand person, her mini-me, if you want to call it that, wrote this on page 118. She said, frail as she was, Miss Mason had faith to live, not ignoring difficulties, not denying pain, but facing both with courage and with a sure and certain hope that workers, strength, and means would come in, so far as the work was the very work meant for her. I think that plays a big part in it too, that we have to be convinced we're not homeschooling just because, well, other people expect us to. We're not homeschooling because, well, it's a good idea, but because this is the work that God has laid on you. Well, that sounds harsh, and it's
No,
not.
not at all.
It is the work He has given to you, and so if we are sure of that, then we have faith in that aspect, and we have faith that He will then provide the strength and the
The
means.
workers and the means to
Yes,
carry it out.
yes, all
Yeah.
of that.
Yeah, that's beautiful. One, back on the practical side of things, one idea I had that I haven't actually tried yet, but when I thought of it, I want to try it. So I don't know if it works, but I'm going to throw it out there. When planning for the year or the term, I thought I should take a look at that and make a list of ideas for bad days, off days, down days. I tend to make the normal plan, and then I also have the extra stuff I want to fit in. You know, when we're having a good season or a week off, we can fit in this, we can do this extra thing. But I thought, what would it be like if I actually made a plan for a day when I can't do any of the normal things? Maybe like find a good documentary that fits in with whatever we're going to be studying. You know, just make a little list of ideas so that when you do have a bad day, and of course you can't in the moment, you're not going to be very creative.
Right.
But if you've got it already figured out, you could just turn to that list and take an easy option to sort of redeem that time.
That's a great idea. I love that.
And certainly there's no pressure to redeem every single day. Some days are just going to be down days. But that's part of where the Charlotte Mason atmosphere of your home is going to come into play, because it's not like when you do have to skip school for the day, it's not like your kids are just sitting around rotting.
That's true.
They
Yeah.
are hopefully
You've still got your art
engaging
picture up, and you can play music in the background. You can.
they're reading books independently. They're doing
Right.
creative play. Maybe we get outside, maybe not. But, you know,
Yeah, the atmosphere is still going to educate them, continue to educate them. So here's an unusual question for you. Are there any advantages or benefits to living with chronic illness? We've talked about the benefit of it shaping us to the likeness of Christ. But in a way, that's everything in life is supposed to shape us
right.
in that direction.
Right.
So, have you ever come across any, and I hesitate to use the word advantages, I'll say positive aspects?
Ways
to-
that it can actually help.
Yes, yes.
Yes. I have a couple of thoughts.
Okay, I'd love to hear those.
Okay, one is that I think living with chronic illness requires that combination of strategy and flexibility. And so bringing that to homeschooling is a huge help, because you can take the time to make a good plan, but then you're also familiar with adapting and tweaking and being flexible. And when it comes to teaching an individual child, maybe it's easier for you to let go of the curriculum and see the child and adapt to what they need. Oh, maybe we're not doing the whole lesson today, but that's okay. We're going to do just as much as they're ready for.
Because
And that really mirrors
Yes.
everything in my life. Can't clean the whole bathroom today, but I can at least wipe the counter off.
Yeah, yeah.
Better than nothing, you know.
So it's almost honed that aspect of your abilities, the need to be flexible and to adjust in other areas of life, make it
Customize it.
yeah. It's almost become second nature to you, and so doing that in schoolwork, it just comes naturally, if you will. Yeah.
The other one, I don't know if it would apply to everyone, but I have found that the more ill I am, the more my perception of time is affected. Did you have this when you were going through cancer treatment, where the days became very long, when you weren't sleeping the whole day because you couldn't probably,
Right.
but you didn't have the ability to fill your time with being productive?
Yeah. You could only read for so long, and then the brain just shut off. And even watching a video, your brain would shut off after a while. Yeah. Yeah. It was a strange sense of time. In some ways it seemed forever, and in other ways it's like, oh, it's evening already. It was just, yeah, it does
Okay.
affect your sense of time.
Yeah. So for me, when I've been ill and unable to fill my time with all the things I want to do, it has forced me to slow down, think about, well, what really matters. And I know myself, if I had more capacity, I'd probably fill up my time with lots of good things, but maybe at the cost of the best things. And so, in some ways, it's a gift to have that reduced capacity to force you to think through what is important. And so many people talk about their time with young children, and that the children grow up so fast, and you blink and it's over. And I haven't so much experienced that. Sometimes I think it'd be nice. I'm blinking, but it's still today.
There's still little, and there's still orange juice on my floor. I mean, come on.
Yes. But in that sense, I see it as a gift to be slowed down and be forced to invest more time and attention to their needs, and in ways that I might have disregarded if I had the ability to do it all.
That's a good point. It almost sounds like you get a superpower, if you will, related to priorities. And when you're forced to pare down and only do what is the most important thing, you've got to decide what is the most important thing.
Right.
So, yeah.
So it sounds really great, right?
Yeah, hey.
Who wants to sign up
Flexible.
for chronic illness?
Yeah, and priorities, superpowers.
Right.
Everybody's going to be rushing to the sign up. Yeah. Me, I want to be chronically ill.
Yeah. But of course, we know the reality is probably none of us would choose to suffer. We just don't want to. As we have talked about, the key to living with chronic illness is faith that God is using it and that He knows best. I have a quote that I brought with me. It's kind of a long quote from Charles Spurgeon that I thought was a really beautiful summation of that life of faith and how God uses adversity.
I'd love to hear it.
This is something he wrote based on Psalm 47:4. He chose our heritage for us. He says, "Believer, if your inheritance is meager, you should be satisfied with your earthly portion, for you may rest assured that it is best for you. Unerring wisdom ordained your lot and selected for you the safest and best condition. When a ship of large tonnage is to be brought up a river that has a large sandbank, if someone should ask, 'Why does the captain steer through the deep part of the channel and deviate so much from a straight line?' his answer would be, 'Because I could not get my ship into harbor at all if I did not keep to the deep channel.' In the same way, you would run aground and suffer shipwreck if your divine captain did not steer you into the depths of affliction, where waves of trouble follow each other in quick succession. Some plants die if they have too much sunshine. It may be that you are planted where you get only a little, but you are put there by the loving farmer, because only in that situation will you produce fruit unto perfection. Remember this, if any other condition had been better for you than the one in which you are, divine love would have put you there. You are placed by God in the most suitable circumstances, and if you could choose your lot, you would soon cry, Lord, choose my heritage for me, for by my self-will I am pierced through with many sorrows. Be content with the things you have, since the Lord has ordered all things for your good. Take up your own daily cross. It is the burden best suited for your shoulder, and will prove the most effective to make you perfect in every good word and work to the glory of God. Busy self and proud impatience must be put down. It is not for them to choose, but for the Lord of love. Trials must and will befall, but with humble faith to see love inscribed upon them all. This is happiness to me.
That's beautiful. Busy self is going to cry against it, and don't let that choose, because it would choose wrong. That's quite a phrase, busy self. Good stuff, good stuff. Do you have any resources or podcasts or books or anything like that that have been especially encouraging to you?
I have a couple of book recommendations, yeah. This one, Chronic Illness, Walking by Faith by Esther Smith. It's a 31-day devotional, and it is my favorite book that I've ever read on chronic illness. It's practical. Each section is short, so easy to read. It's not dramatic like some some chronic illness books are. Highly recommend it for encouragement and practical if anyone wants to check that out.
We'll leave a link in the show notes. Yeah.
The other one is, since, as we talked about, trusting God is so foundational to living with chronic illness, I recommend this one by Jerry Bridges. I'm currently going through it. I've got a couple chapters left, but it's been
just called Trusting God.
Just Trusting God. It's a really great foundational look at the sovereignty of God, which is key to living with chronic illness, I think.
Yeah.
Trusting that God is allowing it all for a reason, and He's working it all, not just in your life, but in the lives of your family and everyone around you.
Those are key ideas that will comfort and encourage and strengthen us in every situation, but especially in chronic illness and pain, and when we're trying to homeschool in the midst of all of that. Thanks so much for sharing from your experience, Ruth. I'm sure it has encouraged many people.
I hope so.
If you enjoyed this podcast, be sure to subscribe. Thanks for joining me. I'll see you next time.